I've been following Ryan Garcia since probably the fight against Jason Velez, sorry, where he went to majority decision. And here's the thing, right? I've been wanting to see him lose ever since. I'll be very honest. Like most other professional, like a lot of other professional fighters and people in boxing fans, both casual and hardcore boxing fans, that consider Ryan Garcia a hype job. Yesterday he proved a lot of people wrong in a lot of ways, and I'm really happy for him for that. I really commend him for that because he really did a good job. I think yesterday's fight was the. I've spoken to a lot of trainers about this fight in the last couple of weeks, and I was always leaning towards Campbell because of the experience and because it was a case of we all know what Campbell brings to the table. I've seen Campbell. I've also seen Campbell up close in camp because when I first moved to the States, I was training out at the Fifth Street Gym in Miami. At that time, Campbell had just brought Jorge Rubio on as his coach, so they would always go to the Fifth Street Gym to spar. I think he was getting ready for Linares. Not for Linares. I think for the Mendy rematch. I don't remember. Anyway, Campbell is a super nice guy, and I wanted him to win because this is also his last shot. I said this in the build-up. I said, if Campbell doesn't beat Garcia, that's it. He's never going to get another world title shot at 135 because if he can't beat Garcia, he won't be able to beat. If he can't beat Garcia right now, he won't be able to beat him next year. He won't be able to beat Devin Haney next year. He won't be able to beat Teofimo Lopez next year. All these guys, like this whole division, and Tank, like they're all young. They're all younger than him, and they're all, none of them are even in their primes yet, except Tank. Tank is entering his prime, so it's really a thing of Campbell is too old. At 135, that's it. At the world level, that's it. So I just wanted him to win, and but so yeah, in regards to Garcia, I think, like I said, I'd been following him since that Velez fight, and the first time I had seen him was it was when he was doing. He went viral for hitting that Cobra bag. I think he was blindfolded maybe, and then he was shadowboxing here and showing that, super fast hands, and at the time he was probably like 10, 11 and 0. I didn't pay much attention, and whenever, and it's the typical story of the pretty boy, like, you haven't, until you don't see him there with someone and you don't believe in him. But it's not just that, and that's why I'm so happy for him after yesterday, even though I really wanted to see him lose, because when fighters see a guy like Garcia and they call him a hype job, they call him an Instagram model or whatever, they say like he doesn't have it, that whatnot. In part, it's you can say that they have reason to believe so because he hasn't fought anyone, but that also comes with a level of saltiness, right? And again, I have to I'm guilty of that too, because you see a guy who hasn't fought anyone but is getting all this attention and is getting all this just getting all these we know with social media you get all more promotional deals, more publicity, better paydays, larger fan base, and that's what boxing is about. The more fans you have, the more you get paid ultimately. So there was always, I think, a bit of like resentment towards Garcia from a large part of the boxing community, And I just, I just want to say this. What the first thing that Garcia proved yesterday, right, is that not coming, when you're not, like, the fact that you're not from the hood, that you're not come from straight poverty, the fact that you don't need to do something, the fact that you don't need boxing to save your life, or need sports to save your life, or coming from a more middle class family like maybe De La Hoya did, or Ryan Garcia did, it doesn't make you less talented. The reason why athletes tend to come from these humble backgrounds is because when you have nothing, when your daily life is much harder than any kind of sporting event could be, and sports are the most likely way out, it's much easier to work hard, or it's much you stay focused. It's much easier to keep a clear mindset of where you want to be, because you don't want to be where you are right now. And that's something that's a very big drive. That gives a lot of motivation when you want to be in a different spot, right? But it has nothing to do with talent. Coming from money or from poverty, that doesn't influence talent. It just influences, in most cases, the desire to, or the willingness to work hard. Ryan Garcia showed that he had that willingness. I mean, he went, he worked hard, he won. Next, what he showed he had grit. He had heart, and that, I mean, he got dropped. I mean, I was pretty. I mean, I stood up from the couch when he got hit, especially because I saw Shane McGuigan and him practicing that shot in the dressing room. Shane McGuigan went, "Go here." He was talking to him, telling him to pull with that jab, throw that right jab low, then come to the top with the left hand, and landed it in the second round. And I was like, wow. I thought Garcia wasn't gonna. I thought Garcia wasn't gonna get back up. To be very honest, I was very impressed the way he shook it off, came back. I do think Campbell let him off the hook a bit, and I think so. The reason why I think ultimately Campbell was gun shy throughout the fight, because I don't think he could keep up with Garcia's hand speed. After the first round, I was pretty surprised at Campbell's game plan. He stood there. He was more flat-footed than I expected him to be. I thought he would move a little bit more. I think he would. I thought he would try to keep range a little bit more. He was very good at nullifying that Garcia left hook. He didn't. He landed it once, and we saw he landed it once on the temple and shook him to his boots. But I think the key into the fight here was Garcia's speed. I think this fight showed a lot of virtues that Garcia has, and but it also showed a lot of flaws. I think Garcia got dropped because he's not used to fighting guys that have that kind of reach. Normally we all knew that he stood up very tall and his chin up in the air, and he was always like to throw his shots and step right back out. And then in this case, he stepped right back out. Normally the shot would go, would miss him by a couple inches, but Campbell landed it flush on the chin. So I think, it gave him, in that sense, this fight gave him a lot of things to work on. I think it also, Reynoso was very good in the corner, gave him so much, it was a learning experience throughout. And again, I spoke to a lot of trainers, and most trainers had Garcia, and I still had Campbell. And I asked them, why do you have Garcia? Even though he hasn't fought anyone, and Campbell is, a gold medalist, has fought them. has fought Linares and Lomachenko and whatnot, and they all said the same thing. The opinion was, they all said, Garcia's being groomed to be a superstar. The matchmakers know what they're doing. Matchmakers aren't going to put him in there with someone that they think he can't really beat, or that they're not pretty certain that he can beat. And this is exactly what happened. It was a very good test. Campbell gave him issues, didn't let him land his shots. He fell short with a lot of his shots, but he also didn't do that much. He was never able to really get his offense off. When the fight got stopped, I had it 4-2 for Garcia. I had it 57-56 through 6. I had Garcia winning rounds 1, 3, 5, and 6, and I had Campbell winning rounds 2, obviously with a knockdown, and round 4, right? But I think what this fight showed is Garcia's boxing skills still have there's a lot of room for improvement. I saw in Campbell a more polished, more all-around solid technician, but in Garcia then I saw a young kid who has tons of determination, who fought with a chip on his, who clearly fought with a chip on his shoulder, and had he fought with the need to prove something. He really, you could really see how much it meant to him afterwards, and it was difficult. I couldn't take it away from him. I was really happy for him. I thought that, again, it gives him a lot to learn. I don't know how he fares against Haney. I think it's interesting because what he does bring to the table, he brings very, very dangerous attributes to the table. And people out there, they still, on social media, they still think, Tank is going to annihilate him. Tank puts him in a body bag. If that would have been Tank landing that left hand, he wouldn't have gotten back up, which I agree. But Tank is also 5'2". He's down here. So for Tank to land that left hook, I mean, that's what. Same with Lopez, right? Haney, in my opinion, although Haney might not be as far in his development as Tank, and he might not be as far in his development as Lopez, at the end of the day, styles make fights, right? And you can't disregard the hand speed, the power, the height, and the corner that Garcia has, right? So when I look at what's next for Garcia, he said he wants Tank, and everyone's saying that Tank will put him in a body bag, and I'll be honest, I'm not too sure of that, because now I know that Garcia, although can get hurt, I know that Garcia gets back up again. I know that he's not scared, right? He wants it, right? Which is the first intangible. But secondly, we go back to the style. Tank is a very explosive puncher. He's very fast. He hits very hard, right? Garcia though is going to have a massive reach and a massive height advantage. Punching up, you never generate the same power as punching down, first of all. And second of all, if they do fight, there's going to be a very big gap of space in which Tank cannot land a shot and Garcia can. And Tank has to cut the distance. So we go back to Garcia's previous opponents. And you have to, I didn't, when he fought Fonseca and when he fought Duno, I really didn't give him any credit, and I didn't care too much for those wins, because stylistically those two guys were just tailor-made for Garcia. Guys that come in and just, looping hands, and he caught them, right? what you do have to think, what you do have to take away from those fights, though, is that Garcia was able to very quickly time them. He was able to get that, to land perfect shots very quickly. So against Campbell, he was coming forward more. Campbell managed to keep the distance and take the left hook away from him. So Garcia had to figure out something different. I mean, he did, and at the end he won it the same way. He took one out of Canelo's book, feinted the right hand, and then just leaped in with that left hook to the body, which was phenomenal, right? But against Tank, he gets to play counterpuncher again. He doesn't have to trade with Tank, and no matter how good Tank is, Tank has never fought hand speed like Garcia's. Just like Garcia's never fought hand speed like Tank. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Garcia is quite ready right now of what I saw against Campbell. I don't think he beats Tank, but I don't think Tank beats up Garcia. I don't think Tank knocks out Garcia easily like everyone says. I think Tank has to, Tank is gonna have to figure out. He's gonna have to make a lot of adjustments himself, because he's never fought hand speed like Garcia's. And Garcia with that jab, Garcia with that left hook, Tank can't just come in like he did against Leo Santa Cruz. Like, when he knocked out Santa Cruz, it was a phenomenal knockout, but if Santa Cruz would have thrown one right hand, the first right hand landed, the second right hand he partially blocked, the third right hand Tank countered, right? It took 2 shots for Tank to catch the right timing and to throw it uppercut. Picture perfect. But if Santa Cruz wouldn't have thrown that third right hand, if he would have just circled out, and it's not like Tank was smothering him, no, he could have, Tank was even standing slightly in an orthodox position when he knocked out, when he threw that left uppercut. If Santa Cruz after the second right hand would have turned out, that fight would have kept on going. Now, I'm not saying Tank wouldn't have knocked him out afterwards, but what I am saying is that Garcia, that it comes from a mistake, and that Garcia is going to be much harder to time than that, because he is much quicker, right? And he is naturally a counterpuncher. So Garcia thinks he's expecting something. He tries to set traps. He tries to get you to throw. Not like Santa Cruz, who's just throwing. Someone who's just constantly throwing punches. If Tank isn't getting hurt, if Tank sees it coming, he can counter it. He has nothing really to worry about. So I think, and it's the same thing with Lopez. I think stylistically, Garcia gives Lopez quite a few issues, just because of hand speed and height. And power. You can't disregard that. You cannot. That makes up for experience. It's not that he can beat anyone with his hand speed and his power, but it gives anyone trouble. He will give anyone trouble at 135. I think that Devin Haney stylistically is the worst possible matchup for Garcia because I think Haney is defensively phenomenal. He has the height, he has the reach. I think all in all three guys are better boxers, are more well-rounded boxers than Garcia is. I think Garcia, he really needs to he does need to learn how to move his head a little bit more. I read an interesting comparison earlier today where a guy said that he thought that Garcia had a similar style to Tito Trinidad, and I thought that was actually a pretty good comparison. I agree with that. I think that Garcia is very flat-footed. I think Garcia needs to bounce up and down a bit more. He needs to he needs to move his head a bit more. He also needs to start using his feet to go in and out of distance a bit, because he feints, but he's always in place and his head doesn't move out of center line. So even when he feints, it's very short. Even when he feinted that right hand with the left hook, when you see Canelo doing that, his head goes all the way to the left and then he comes up with the hook. Garcia just feinted, kind of forward a little bit, and then just leaped in with that shot. So I think that doesn't work it's not going to work with guys that are quicker. I think, so again, Haney having that reach too, which he has, having that defensive mindset, I think Garcia won't be able to land many shots on Haney. I think Haney would outpoint Garcia in a fight. But there's nowhere else to go anymore. And that's it. I mean, there's literally, anyone Garcia fights now they all have to be elite. So maybe you give Garcia, if he does fight Tank, I would probably have Tank like a 60-40 situation. If he were to fight Lopez, I probably think I think Lopez would be more of a closer, like a 55-45 for Lopez. Like Haney, I think Haney would also be a 55-45 favorite against Garcia. I would like to see Garcia fight someone else at 135 who'd give him, a different look, who's quick, who feints, who has power, someone who can get him a little bit closer, who can really, who has the physical abilities, who has comparable physical abilities. Because he again, Luke Campbell, to me, technically was a much better fighter on Fight Night than Garcia. He was much looser. He was able to keep Garcia. He was able to block most of what Garcia was throwing. He was able to, the distance that Garcia, he had Garcia at a distance where Garcia was never really able to land those hard shots that he was against other opposition. Despite Campbell not really throwing much in return, despite Campbell not, he was only looking for that one hard shot because he just couldn't keep up with the hand speed. So I would want to see Garcia in with someone who has those physical abilities, who is fast, who can beat Garcia to the punch and see Garcia overcome that kind of difficulty. And then I would put him in there with any one of these other three guys in the division, I think. But I think wow, it's by far the deepest division in boxing right now. I mean, there is just, in that sense, 2021, what a start. I mean, it was that, maybe you put Garcia in with Linares now. Maybe you do that just because Linares, at the end of the day, he dropped Campbell, he dropped Lomachenko, he has hand speed, he has power, he's a 3-division world champion. That will be a good next fight. I think that will be also an easy fight to make. And then after Linares, you go for the bigger names in the division.